Okay, listen up, because what we're about to talk about is serious. I need you to really stick with me here. We're diving into a topic that not many people are willing to talk about, but I'm about to break it down for you. People really don't realize how crazy this whole thing is. The player who is supposed to be one of the brightest stars in the Premier League, but now finds himself tangled in one of the most bizarre situations in recent football history. Chelsea, the club that just took a chance on him, are already thinking about cutting their losses. And I'm not talking about just letting his loan expire. Nah, they're actually considering paying £5 million to send him back to Manchester United. Now, let that sink in. Instead of keeping him for £25 million, which is honestly a steal by today's market standards, they're considering losing money just to get rid of him. What does that tell you? But here's the real question. Why is it that Sancho can't stick anywhere? Why does it feel like this guy can't find his place? Stick with me here, because there's a lot more to this situation than meets the eye. And once we break it all down, things get a whole lot clearer. But trust me, it gets worse from here. Let's take a step back for a second and really talk about who Jadon Sancho was supposed to be. Back at Dortmund, the kid was an absolute revelation. I mean, we're talking about a young player who had people drawing comparisons to the likes of Mbappe and Vinicius Jr. The kid was special. Dribbling? Ridiculous. Close control, silky smooth, vision and decision making. He was playing chess while the defenders were stuck on checkers. Sancho wasn't just a talent, he was potentially one of the next superstars in world football. He was one of the most sought-after wingers in Europe. So when Manchester United dropped £73 million to bring him in, of course it made sense. United had been crying out for a right winger, and here they were signing one of the best young talents in Europe. It was supposed to be the perfect fit. But here's the thing, ever since Sancho stepped onto English soil, things started to feel different. It wasn't about his ability, because we've seen flashes of brilliance. He still has that silky dribbling and ability to create magic in tight spaces, but something went missing. The consistency? Gone. The explosive nature of his play? Disappeared. And people were quick to say, well, maybe Sancho just isn't cut out for the Premier League. Here's the truth, that's not the issue. It's about mentality. Alright, now let's talk about what's really going on with Jadon Sancho. I've been hearing things that most people don't hear in the media. And I'm not talking about the usual gossip, I'm talking about what goes on behind the scenes. I've got friends who've seen him out in Manchester and London. And let's just say, football isn't always his main priority. I'm not here to judge anyone's lifestyle, but there's a pattern here that can't be ignored. You see, when you're talking about the top elite players in the world, Haaland, Mbappe, Bellingham, they're literally obsessed with football. Their lives revolve around it. They put everything else aside for their craft. It's what makes them great. But with Sancho, it's not the same. There are too many distractions. I'm hearing that he's often messing about with girls, partying, and spending time in places that probably aren't helping his focus on football. Now, I'm not here to slander the guy. If he wants to enjoy life outside of football, I'm not going to tell him what to do. We all know athletes are humans too, and they deserve a life outside the game. But there's a fine line. When you're trying to get back to your best, when you're trying to prove you belong at the top, these distractions can derail you. And we've seen it before with players who've let that lifestyle get in the way of their career. I mean, when you're that talented, you really need to be locked in. There's a reason some players fall short of their potential. It's not about talent, it's about discipline. And here's the kicker, this isn't something new. Multiple managers have been complaining about his training habits and lateness ever since his days at Manchester City's academy. That's right, even back then, coaches were frustrated with how often he'd show up late, how he'd be inconsistent with his approach, and how his off-the-pitch life sometimes affected his performance on it. That's a huge red flag, and as much as people want to blame United or Chelsea or whatever club he's at, this isn't just a one-off situation, this is a long-term pattern. So it's not just about talent, it's not just about whether he can dribble or score goals, it's about his commitment, his mentality, and how willing he is to put in the hard work. The issue with Sancho is that when he's not 100% focused on football, his performances drop. We saw that at United, we saw it at Chelsea, and if we're being real, he even showed flashes of this at Dortmund. He had the right environment in Germany, which kept him in check, but now that he's back in the UK, those distractions are everywhere. And with this move to Chelsea, bro, I thought we'd see a new Sancho, a fresh start, but just like everything else, the moment things started to go well, it faded. And now Chelsea are already thinking about paying to send him back to United. If he doesn't make it at Chelsea, then what? Can he even make it back to his best at another club? Is it time for United to finally cut ties and just move on from the baggage that's been building up? Because that's what it feels like right now. Too much baggage. It's not about his ability. The man can play football, we know that, but mentally it feels like he's nowhere near where he needs to be. Now, fast forward to this season, Chelsea, who were supposed to be his fresh start, are already thinking about cutting their losses. Just a few months ago, when Sancho moved to Stamford Bridge, people were excited. They thought, this is it. This is where Sancho finally comes good. And at first, he looked promising. He was sharp. He was linking up well with teammates. He seemed to be playing with confidence, something we hadn't seen in a while. But then, it faded again. Chelsea now finds themselves at a crossroads, wondering if they want to commit £25 million to this guy long term, or should they just pay £5 million to send him back to Manchester United and move on? That's crazy. £25 million is the price clubs pay for quality starters, and yet Chelsea, with all their spending power, are still not convinced. This is the moment that tells you everything you need to know. If Chelsea, a club notorious for spending big, are already thinking about cutting their losses, then that's a massive red flag. So, what's next for Sancho? Is there even a way back to United? There's no chance. Amorim won't touch him with a 10-foot pole, especially with all the baggage that's come with him. Dortmund again? Do they even want him back at this point? His relationship with them was strong, but after everything that's gone down, that bridge might be burned too. A move abroad? Where does he go? Spain? Italy? But what club would want to invest in a player who looks like a liability right now? This is the issue. Sancho doesn't fit anywhere. At this point, it's not just about ability anymore. It's about trust. Once clubs start questioning whether they can rely on you, not just for your football, but for your focus and attitude, that's a slippery slope. We've seen players go from superstar to afterthought in a matter of months, and Sancho is starting to look like one of those cases. But if we're being real, it's not like Sancho is finished as a footballer. No, there's still the talent there. It's just that no one seems to believe in him anymore. And when that happens, you become a risk, and the best clubs won't take that risk. Now, let's say for a second that Sancho somehow gets another shot at United. If that were to happen, I honestly think he could fit into one of the number 10 positions in Amorim's system. He has the technical ability, the dribbling, and the vision to play in those spaces. But here's the problem, I don't want him back. Why? Because there's just too much baggage, too much drama, too many issues, the distraction, the lack of focus. It's become a huge part of his story, and that's something United just can't afford right now. United needs to move on, to build a new identity, one that doesn't revolve around a player who might not be fully invested. There's just too much to fix, and right now, it feels like a broken relationship that both sides need to walk away from. So here's the big question, and I want to know what you guys think. Should Chelsea keep him? Should United try again? Or is Sancho finished at the top level? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious to hear what you all think.